Some say it's Monday, while others Sunday. Well, who's behind this confusion? Why was this caused in the first place? Well, to answer the question, let's first look at where the seventh-day week came from. And the Bible says God created the 7 days of the week in the book of Genesis, and he called those days simply day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. And day 7. Now, God had finished his creations on day 6, but he made another day, the 7th day, so that his creatures can spend time with him. God sanctified this day and made this day holy. Now, this whole day was made so that humans can worship him and grow in their relationship with him. God must have known that the humans will be so busy doing stuff, they will forget who the Creator was. And he also knows that Satan will do everything he could to confuse this day so that humans would worship him on the wrong day in this confusion. Now you fast forward from the biblical creation of the 7th day to the days of the Roman Empire. Pagan Rome worshipped the sun, the moon, and other planets, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, and Venus, and Satan, and decided to label God's days using the name of these planets. So they started sun, worship of the sun, calling it Sunday. They called moon Monday, worship of the moon. Then they worship the whole host of other planets like Mars, and they call that Tuesday. And then, of course, they worship Mercury, and they call it Wednesday. They worshipped Jupiter, and they call it Thursday, and worshipped Venus and called it Friday, and of course worshipped Saturn and call it Saturday. Now, the Romans had simply relabeled God's days with their own name. Now, further fast forward to today's world, the 21st century, and this is when smart humans came into the scene and decided to change God's days by labeling them again. They organized themselves into committees and developed standards for the world, and they call themselves the International Standards Organization, or the ISO. They call themselves this, and it's an industry group, and members are not obliged to follow what their rulings are, and they meet, and they created a world standard called ISO 8601. They thought it was a good idea to move God's day 1 of the week to Monday, meaning relabeling Monday as day 1, and the rest of the days just linearly following through to Sunday being day 7. This was agreed in 1988, but not all countries agreed to this standard, the standard of ISO 8601. But the result caused even more confusion because not all nations agreed to this standard. Canada, the US, Japan, and China, for instance, followed the biblical definition. Now it raises a question. Relabeling God's day 2 to the first day of the week, does it change God's day? No, of course not. God's days are still day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. The ISO simply relabeled God's days, God's truth, unchanging truth, and added more confusion to the world as a result. And I wonder who's behind all this. You guessed it, Satan. By relabeling the first day of the week, the 7th day, it's skewed by 1 day. What does it happen? What is the result? It affects God's requirements, and that was to keep the 7th day holy and to worship him on the 7th day. How does it affect it? Well, causing unsuspecting humans to worship God on day 1 instead of day 7. In effect, causing humans to disobey God's commandments without even knowing they have disobeyed God. Now, can you see now where the confusion comes from and who and why it was caused in the first place? But God knew this and maintained a small group in this world, in the end times, to keep this truth alive, or at least draw attention to this scam that Satan has devised. This is why you are hearing what you are hearing. It is not a coincidence that you have not swiped ahead and decided to listen to the end. Now that you've listened to the end, now that you know the truth, what are you going to do about it? God bless.